Hi, this is Ash with Spark 59. By now you should have completed your first business model canvas. Today we're going to spend some time putting your business model through the ringer. The reasoning behind this is best summed up by Seth Godin. All projects go through some level of thrashing. Successful projects do all their thrashing at the beginning. Yes, last time I stressed that you can't reason your way to a plan that works, and yes, you have to get outside the building to empirically test your plan. But you can get your initial plan to a much stronger starting point and save yourself a lot of learning time simply by avoiding some common pitfalls that have tripped up other entrepreneurs. That is what today is really about. I'm going to run down the top 10 business model pitfalls I've repeatedly seen by working with hundreds of entrepreneurs and show you how to avoid them. Here we go. Number 10, not clearly defining your success metric. I've recently run into a number of entrepreneurs who from the outside seem to have it all together. They have a nice office, 20 plus people on the team, and a product that customers do seem to like. But they are unhappy. They are unhappy because they want to grow their business even more. When I ask them why they want to grow, or more specifically to what they want to grow into, they don't really have an answer. They're pursuing growth for the sake of growth. The reverse extreme is also common. It's fairly common to find entrepreneurs who have achieved just enough lukewarm success to keep plowing forward endlessly. Both of these companies are what we call zombie companies. They have mastered the art of creating just enough short-term runway to keep them from going out of business. At the root, the problem is that they don't really have a clear vision of what success should look like. This is something you capture under your key metrics section. Now, I'm not going to tell you what success should look like for you. It's different for different people. For some people, success is building a $100 million company. For others, it's building a $10 million company. For others yet, it's something else entirely, like bringing a change in the world, making a dent in the universe. There is no wrong answer. But whatever your reason, you should take the time to ask yourself why you want to build this specific business and what the finished story benefit would be to you. That is, how will you recognize success when you see it? Then you need to set a time box for realizing this finished story benefit. In other words, try to focus on your overall why and when for this business. This is the great talk to help with uncovering your why. I'll have more to say about the golden circle in later videos. Once you have your why and when written down, you then want to take a step back and ask whether your current business model can scale, at least on paper, to meet that success metric. If not, rethink your business model now versus waiting to see what happens 6 months or 2 years from now. Next, we all would like to build a company like Facebook that is used by practically everyone on the planet. But here's the thing, when you start by building a product for everyone, you end up building a product for no one. Even Facebook didn't start by opening up their network to everyone. They started with a specific customer segment, their early adopter who happened to be college students, and not just any college student, but college students at the Harvard campus. At this point, it's critical to hone in on your early adopters because they will define and determine your initial business model. Now, those of you that have read Jeffrey Moore's Crossing the Chasm book will be quick to point out that the early adopters behave very differently from mainstream customers, and that there is this chasm between them that can be hard to cross later. But here's the thing, most of you are at the beginning of this curve. You should be so lucky to have a chasm to cross one day. Also, you can't cross this chasm by trying to leapfrog early adopters, but rather by riding the curve and using early adopters to build enough momentum to then leap over the chasm. So take one more pass at your early adopter definition and make sure it's as specific as you can make them while still maintaining a healthy, addressable market size. That said, there is a real danger of getting too narrow too soon and falling into the local maximum trap. At the earliest stages, your job isn't executing, but finding a plan that works. We can turn to computer science and search algorithms for some inspiration here. In computer science, there is a mathematical optimization technique called hill climbing that attempts to find better solutions by incrementally changing a single element of the solution. The problem with this approach is that while it's good at finding a local optimum, it doesn't guarantee that you'll be able to find the best possible solution out of all possible solutions. A way to see this visually is imagining you're blindfolded and placed halfway up on the smaller hill in this picture, and you're given the task to get to the highest point. You'll probably have no problem stumbling your way eventually up to the top of the small hill, where you'll declare you're at the highest point, only to be shocked by the neighboring mountain when you take off your blindfold. The same thing can happen with your business model. If you narrow down too quickly and focus all your attention on optimizing it, you may successfully achieve a local maximum but miss out on a much bigger opportunity. While there is no way to completely avoid the local maxima problem, you can raise your odds of success when you're initially open to exploring and even testing multiple models in parallel. After creating your initial canvas, it's usually a good idea to take a step back and ask yourself if there are other customer segments and/or problems that you can explore. I recommend quickly sketching a few variations and picking a short list, no more than 3 canvases for further testing. If you still just have one, that's okay too. You will eventually need to converge to just one model as you get further in your testing anyway. The more important thing at this stage is to be open to multiple possibilities and cast a wider net, since everything on your canvas is still a guess and open to a lot of uncertainty. Number 7. The secret to getting a customer's attention is nailing their problem. You can do that by using a general problem statement, but going the other way. Revisit your problem statements and, using your more specific early adopter definition now, attempt to get even more specific on your problems. Use the 5 whys technique I showed you last time and the jobs to be done framework to define specific workflows or use cases where the problem surfaces. Number 6. Having no unfair advantage story. I've mentioned before that most startups don't have an unfair advantage on day one, and it's okay to leave this section blank, especially if the alternative is picking something that is clearly not an unfair advantage, such as having more passion or more features. That said, the unfair advantage box is unlike the other boxes. It's not something you decide to test one day, but rather if and when you start getting some traction, your competition and copycats will do it for you. If you don't yet have an unfair advantage by then, you may be easily displaced. So you do have to at least take some time to think about this unfair advantage and think about where it will come from. Maybe even start taking some initial steps towards building it. Number 5. The biggest initial challenge of a startup is getting noticed at all by customers, which is the job of your unique value proposition. It needs to be different and it needs to matter. If you can do these two things, you stand to make the competition irrelevant. Revisit your unique value proposition using the formulas I shared with you last time and see if you can make them stronger or come up with alternates that you may want to test. Remember that your unique value proposition typically goes on a landing page where it has less than 8 seconds to make an impression. At the same time, this is something you're going to do a lot of testing around, so don't stress too much over this, but just make sure that this is something that you give enough attention. Number 4, not having enough runway. Running out of resources is the main reason products eventually fail. One of your main jobs initially should be establishing enough runway until your next significant learning milestone. I tend to break these milestones into 3 stages. The first milestone asks the question, do I have a problem worth solving? You determine this through early conversations with customers, after which you define your initial product or minimum viable product. Once your minimum viable product is defined, you build it in the second stage and then test if it works well enough at small scale. And then finally, you turn your attention towards scaling. So the initial milestones that I like to get through are usually the problem solution fit stages and some of the product market fit stage. Revisit your cost structure and solution boxes to see if you can reduce scope even further on your minimum viable product, so you shorten your validation cycle with customers. If you're going to be raising funding, identify how much traction or customer engagement you need to achieve for that conversation with investors. If you're bootstrapping, identify your break-even point and put some time constraints around it. Number 3, no significant path to customers. I wrote a post titled The Fallacy of Customer Development, which you can find on my blog. The main thesis in there was that the ability to build a scalable channel ultimately determines your product's fate. You can sometimes identify a handful of early adopters, use them to build the right product, and even get paid. But if you can't reach more customers at scale, nothing else matters. While it's okay to start with any channel to start the process of learning, I would encourage you even at this stage to identify where scalable channels will come from and start investing in building and testing them right now from day one. Number two, no monetizable pain. The difference between a hobby and a business is that the latter gets you paid. Your business model needs to be able to tell a conceivable story, at least on paper, on who is going to pay you and why. There are two main questions to answer here. What do customers pay today to solve this must-have problem, and what will you charge for your solution? You determine both of these from your list of existing alternatives. It helps to again think of your product in terms of a job customers hire you to do. How much money or effort do they expend getting this job done is a good way to start this process. And finally, the number one pitfall, which hopefully should not be a surprise at this point, is falling in love with your solution. When entrepreneurs get hit by an idea, they fall in love with the solution, or again, what I like to call as awesome. Sometimes that awesome is truly awesome for a lot of people, but more often than not, it's not. As much as possible, defer thinking about your final solution, at least for now. Just don't do it. Instead, challenge yourself to think in terms of the minimum viable product, where the primary directive is delivering value to customers in the fastest manner possible. Your true minimum viable product will be revealed as you get outside the building and start having real conversations with customers. So there you have it. Work your canvas through each of these pitfalls and you'll find yourself at a much stronger starting point. Until next time, take care. Thanks.